Very good afternoon, a very good morning, a very good evening, and welcome back to Espila Ikonya Tutorials. And today we are looking at a very different aspect of photography. This is where we're going to be teaching you free tutorials on what you need to learn. So today we're going to look at a very interesting thing that most of you don't really tend to get and resonate with. Because last time we had looked at the periphery, and right now we're going to look at something that is very important. You know, without a good exposed photograph, you are not really doing photography. So today we're going to look at a very important thing that is called the exposure triangle. Well, today I have my camera here, Canon, but today it's on, it's lit. So we're going to do things practically. You're going to see how each and everything is done, basically, so that you can be able to practice. So remember to like, subscribe, and share, leave a comment there, hit the notification button so that you can get notification of each and every video that I'm going to be doing. So without further ado, let's begin. There is something in a camera that is called the exposure triangle. It's a very important aspect in terms of creating a very exposed and good looking picture. So the exposure triangle exists only in the camera in the aspect of three forms. There is the ISO, aperture, and the shutter speed. So what are these three things? Someone might ask, what is the ISO, what is the shutter speed, and what is the aperture? Let us first begin by telling you this. On your top of your camera over here, there is a knob. There is a knob that is used to tell us what we need to use in terms of settings. You know, there's the AV TV mode. I'll teach you all this in the next tutorial. There is the SV mode, there is the P mode, there is the M mode, there is the A mode. So the M mode is the one that is used to show the full exposure triangle. The M mode is the manual mode. So I'm gonna set my camera to manual. I'm going to set my camera to manual, and it's going to go as okay. I'm going to set it as okay. So when I set it to manual, it means automatically everything, me as the photographer, I have extreme control over the camera. Anything that I do on my camera is in extreme control. So on my LCD over here, you will see that I have three aspects. There's 1/100, f5.6, 2000, 3200. So I'm going to explain each of them based on what you're going to learn. So I'm going to start with 1/100. 1/100 is basically called the shutter speed. Shutter speed is the aspect of which how fast your camera is going to capture an image using the shutter button. You remember last time we talked about the shutter button. So how fast it is that it's going to capture a fast moving or a slow moving object is called the shutter speed. So the shutter speed operates in this aspect. The higher the shutter speed, that is from 1/100 all the way to 1/200, it means the shutter speed is going to be high. It's going to capture the image much faster, and the image quality is going to be low. It means that the light quality is going to be low in the image. It means the exposure is going to be low. Why? You will need a higher shutter speed to capture a fast moving object, and you will need less light to capture this fast moving object in the aspect of shutter speed. So you've heard many times on photography where there are a lot of click sounds. So that means that the shutter speed is high. What is the importance of having a high shutter speed? The importance of high shutter speed is used in high motion photography. That means you're taking pictures of footballers who are playing footballs. You're taking photographs of maybe an event, maybe in a wedding, someone wants to place a ring. You're taking those photos. So that is the importance of high shutter speed photography. It is very important. And then number two, also it is used in wildlife photography where an animal is moving. You do not want to blur the object. So I've talked about blurring. I'm going to explain that. You don't want to blur the object, so it's used in such high quality photography. So what is the aspect, or what is the reverse of using a low shutter speed? A low shutter speed is somewhere between 1/20 to 1/10, or around 1/6. This means it is very low. The object that is going to move will be blurred. It means it's going to be slowed down to a certain amount. And what will happen to the exposure? The exposure will go high. That is on shutter speed. So it is very important to note that The lower the shutter speed, the more exposed the object, and the more blurrier the image. It is going to be blurry in terms of the movement. So that is it about shutter speed. So number 2, we have the F number. The F number is the aperture. The aperture is the small opening in the lens of the camera. On your lens, you will see there is a small opening. So that lens allows light in or out. So the more exposed the larger the opening, the more the exposed the object. So what happens with aperture? The F numbers is the amount that is used to measure aperture. On my next tutorial, I'll show you how to calculate aperture. So F number, from the bigger the F number, the lower the amount of light. So from F 5.6 to F11, we are halving the light. We are halving the amount of light by a half. You understand? From F11 to F 5.6, we are doubling the number. We are doubling the amount of light. So aperture is the one that enhances exposure. So both the aperture and the shutter speed, both of them have something called an inverse proportionate increase of light. You understand? So that means that the inverse, when going up, the light goes down. When going down, the light goes up. But in shutter speed, it affects the motion. Not only the light, it also affects the motion of what you're going to achieve. Lastly, let's talk about the ISO. The ISO is the constant. It is the K factor. ISO means that whatever that the photo you're going to take is exactly what you're going to receive in terms of light. That is, if you talk of the photos of an extreme area, that means if I put my constant to maybe 3200, it means the light is a bit exposed to a certain area. If I put it to 640, it is going to be less. So how am I going to manipulate this? That means it's going to be constant. If I increase, it increases. If it decreases, it decreases. So what is going to happen with the exposure triangle? You have to ensure that if the shutter speed is high, the aperture has to be a bit low. You understand? So if my shutter speed is 1/640, it means I'm going to place my image at around 5.6. That means it's going to balance the exposure depending on the area that you have. So we are going to do it practically. So if I put my photo, if I put my shutter speed at 1/100 and my F number at 5.6 and my ISO at 3200, it means when I take my photo, if I take my photo, I'm going to have a right exposed image based on that. But if I manipulate my settings to something lesser than that, let's say I have 1/200, then f5.6. If I take my image, if I take my photo, it might not be that clear. It will be very dark. Okay, so you have to ensure that your ISO is high. Your ISO is high, so that at least you can get a bright image, maybe that's 200. So maybe I take a photo of my camera over here, so that I can have maybe a clearer photo, maybe 1/40. My aperture to be that, my shutter speed to be around 6400. So if I take it, yeah, that will be beautiful. It will be well exposed. That means I have increased the shutter. I've reduced the shutter speed to 1/40. 1/40. My F number is 5.6, which is constant. My ISO is 6400 based on the room temperature. The room temperature, I am using fill lights. So the room temperature will just allow me to 6400, 5.6, 1/40. So it is important to note all this so that you can be able to, but you don't have to cram the numbers, because the numbers can be different. The room temperature is different. Light intensity is measured in temperature. So that is it, folks, about the exposure triangle. My name has been Espila Kalem. Thank you so much for watching. Keep it locked in Espila Ekonya Tutorials. That is it, folks. See you next time. Young guy.